Welcome to the Be About It podcast. My name is Ben Mercedes, and I'll be your host who will cover financial and crypto markets, real estate, and entrepreneurship. My goal is to inspire others to be about it and take action. Today's guest is Muffy Bennett, who is an internationally known car broker and collector. We discuss her journey from her first deal all the way to selling a $4.6 million Batmobile, electric cars, and more. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Muffy, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast. Why don't you tell me, who you are and what it is that you do?
Certainly. Thank you, Ben, for having me. My name is Muffy Bennett, and I am the CEO of Bennett Automotive Specialists. We do excellence in all things automotive. We have personal brokerage services. We buy collector cars. We resell collector cars. We have a client base that has us store them on their behalf and the like. Really, there's nothing we wouldn't do in connection with classic cars and collector cars.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing this now?
Well, I've been doing it under the Bennett Automotive banner since 2006. And I think the first car remarketing program I did was back in 2004 with my own money. And it was a lot of fun. I was hooked. I'm a paralegal by trade. And for those of you who aren't aware, I specialized in mergers, acquisitions, and sports and entertainment law and franchising and stuff along those lines. And
I was reading that, and I was wondering how you made the jump from like paralegal into auction block.
Well, my better half happened to be, at the time when I met him, the general manager of BarrettJackson, the largest in the world, I believe, at the time.
Yeah.
Yep. And they only held one sale per year, and I was always a car addict. Ever since I was a little girl, started with motorcycles, then rolled into cars. And I used to go out and I'd work at the auctions on my vacation or take time off or whatever and just go out and either I started out just helping him, and then I got into various departments. And then I was offered a role. I was very interested in getting out of law because there's no fun sitting behind a computer doing research and writing contracts all day. Not my deal. I got a Ferrari brain with stock Chevy brakes, and I just can't function in that environment very long. So I got an offer for a company here in town, a personal property auction company, and that's how I got my foot in the door. We sold basically anything that didn't cry or call you mama, and it began from there.
Awesome. Can you explain what BarrettJackson is for someone who doesn't know?
BarrettJackson is, their moniker is the world's greatest collector car auction. They hold several sales per year across the United States. They sell classics, customs, resto mods, special interest vehicles, all of which are at no reserve. And they're broadcasts on, I believe now it's the FYI network, if memory serves.
Got it. And when you go to BarrettJackson, what are your favorite things to look for?
I haven't been in quite some time. I don't really look for things whenever I go to an auction. We went out to the Mecum auction not long ago. We had a vehicle we were selling there, and I'll fall in love 10 times when I go down an aisle. I'm terrible. I'll just see a car, want to have it, need to have it. I'm just like any other car guy. I'll go there for one car and fall in love with something else. So, I do spend a lot of time gauging the markets, making sure that when I purchase a car, I'm purchasing it with enough margin left. If that's the approach I'm currently working on with a client. I do buy on behalf of clients, but I tend to do that privately. But it helps to go to these auctions to find out what the market is truly, because there's the best way to determine a car's value is what someone is willing to pay in a no reserve auction setting.
Yeah, I was reading one of your interviews, or it was a snippet online where it was talking about no reserves and just a tactic that can be used where basically the prices can be raised.
Right.
Yeah, and so I've seen that, and I've watched other shows with BarrettJackson and other stuff, Gas Monkey Garage and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to see, even with a no reserve, you could still lose money or obviously not make as much as you want.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you bring that up, Ben. And let me explain a little bit more to those of you who aren't aware.
Sure.
In any auction company, if you consign a car with a reserve on it, the auction house has the right to bid close up to that reserve amount with the hopes that real money will lock on.
Yep.
So perfectly legal as long as it's disclosed in the terms and conditions. The unfortunate thing is with this approach, people tend to look at it like it's creating a false ceiling for the value of that car.
Right.
The truest way to get a value of a car is to consign no reserve, where it really does go home to the last person standing.
Right.
100% ethical, above board, and that's what BarrettJackson does. That's what Ritchie Brothers does. They are across the board 100% ethical. And the practice of when you consign a reserve car to say Mecum or one of the other auction houses, I have never consigned with a reserve before. I just won't bother because to me, kind of wasting clients' time, wasting my time. But say I take a car to auction and I want a $50,000 reserve. I've told the auction house this is what I think it's worth, but this is my reserve. It rolls up on the auction block. The auction house is bidding against. Essentially, these bidders are bidding against the auction house. And then if I get somebody that raises their hand in the audience and says, "Hey, I'll give you $40,000 for that car," that's when the seller has the opportunity to say yes or no. I can drop the reserve and I can sell the car there, or I can say, no, I need 50. And the auction house will continue to work to work those buyers as potential bidders. So that's how that works. There's nothing deceiving about it. It's perfectly legal in the industry. It's not against the UCC code at all. So it's a fascinating environment. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself into some trouble. You can get carried away, especially when you're buying. I've been there, done that.
One of the first cars. So when I was 18, I crashed my car. Fell asleep at the wheel. Right, 18th birthday, insane. So now I'm looking for a car, and there's a place in New Hampshire. It's not like a pure auction house, but they do some auctions. And I remember bidding on a Lexus, but I don't think I ever paid for it, or something happened. But just like the emotions of like being in that, where like, hey, you want a car, and you're going back and forth. So how do you manage your emotions with dealing with that often? Well,
you have to be really controlled, and I finally have managed to get it under control. Sometimes I'll get a little wrapped up, and that's how I've made my living in the past. You sell a car at auction, and actually you go to an auction, you see something that you feel that you can't live without. You start bidding on it, and then you've got alcohol, TV, peer pressure.
Absolutely.
Told all your buddies to come home with a car, and So anyway. I have definitely cut into some of my margins. I've lost money before, but when I bought a car auction and then put a little bit of lipstick on it and then resold it. It happens. I've lost $20,000 in one morning because I misjudged the market. And then I've made a couple $100,000 later on in the day, so it's the name of the game. It really is.
Yeah.
But when you're in love with a car, that's the way this market is. It's all passion driven.
Right. Can you tell me about your first deal that you came across? Or your first memorable deal?
Probably purchasing a car. Actually, no, we had a car. Yeah, it was one that we had. We had a vehicle that was worth, we thought, somewhere in the $7,000 range. And we polished it up and represented it right and sold it no reserve. And it brought, I want to say, $25,000.
Awesome.
If memory serves, but they're not all that good.
Absolutely.
I've lost a lot of money too. I've missed the market. I've overspent. So when you go restoring these cars, you get carried away. When you do the paint, then you got to do the chrome. If you're doing the paint and the chrome, well, then the interior looks subpar. So you got to do the interior. Well, then you look at the dash doesn't look right. So you got to go ahead and do the dash. So, and then, I think I paid $3,500 for a steering wheel once to have it refurbished. For a client, mind you, but it's those things. We restore these things for the passion and not because there's money in them per se. If there's money made at the end, then great. But it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Can you tell me about, say, your worst deal or like a nightmare? Like that time that you lost $20,000. What happened there?
Oh boy.
I like to present both sides, right?
No, I
think things are all glitz and glamour.
Oh, no, I completely understand. Okay, so probably my biggest loss. I had a business partner. He was an absolutely amazing man. I had done all my research, flown across the country, purchased a Shelby for what I thought was a good deal.
What year?
It was a 67.
Okay.
Brought the thing back. I think I did some paint work to it. I worked on the glass a little bit. It's hard to work on glass. I wanted to keep the date codes correct. So I didn't do a whole lot. I had some guy come out and try and polish it. It didn't work out to my advantage. And then I had some mirrors added to it, and I had the underside basically completed.
Gotcha.
There was some incorrectness to the underside without going into details. It was the year that year or year prior, Mr. Carroll Shelby sadly had passed away. And all of us, I think, or not all of us, but a lot of us in the industry felt that there was a chance that we'd be able to capitalize, morbid as it is, because when Enzo Ferrari passed away, the Ferraris went through the roof. So people were assuming that Shelbys were going to do the same thing. Well,
I would assume the same.
Yeah, well, I misjudged on that account. And unfortunately, there were so many Shelbys on the docket at the auction that, it's a law of supply and demand. Some of it, yeah. So as a result, I thought it would bring X and it brought Y, and I was upset, but you get over it. You have to take the averages, essentially. You don't want to turn around and say, put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. And so growing up, were you exposed to business, or did you just kind of learn that on your own after time?
Well, I actually learned a lot of that from my husband, Gary. I was not exposed to classic cars. I actually fell in love with motorcycles first off. Much to my mother's chagrin, my mom was a nurse, and she absolutely hated the fact that I was interested in them. I asked her to take me into the Kawasaki dealership when I was, about 4 or so, and I first learned how to read, because I fell in love with some black ones that were parked out front, all chrome and shiny, And that's how it started. So I don't know when it started, but it started, and I didn't have any influences growing up. I could never get anybody to go with me to any auctions, but we used to go to car shows as a high schooler all the time. And my boyfriend in high school had a 59 Ford Thunderbird. It was bright teal, as obnoxious as it can be, the classic color. It's, back in the 50s, and all the pastels were hot. So I asked my mom to make my dress the same color as the car, and I was just this giant teal nightmare. So I've carried it throughout the years. Don't really know when it started, but it's developed into a passion of mine, a big passion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, every time I look up, you seem to be doing some really cool things or posting some really cool things. Can you tell me what you have in your personal collection?
We don't have a whole lot right now. We've sold a couple of them. We've got a 2018 Ford GT. I've got a Lamborghini Huracan Spider.
What does the GT cost? Or what do they run for?
Well, right now, actually MSRP, I want to believe the car was $560. And they're selling this particular model. I think one just brought over $1 million at Barrett.
Wow.
We've got, the Lamborghini. We've got, I've got a 59 Ford Thunderbird Resto mod. We've got a Z06 Corvette. I've got a Mini Cooper that has been heavily modified. It's a 2-seater roadster, and it's my grocery car. I love that car.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
original engine on that?
On the Mini Cooper? Yeah. Okay. It's turbo, but I had it lowered. I had, the K&N filter. I had a couple of parts swapped out. So it produces an additional, I want to say 25 horses, and it's a tiny little thing. It goes.
Yeah. So it already feels quick. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, it's awesome. Fantastic. And we have a lot of motorcycles too. My husband and I just love motorcycling. It's how we met. Got it.
So the Cooper's your almost daily driver?
No, we have a Jeep that's our daily driver.
Cool. That was one of my questions.
And a Hummer.
So
H1.
I saw the Hummer. That looked pretty cool. Was it did you post it during a storm, or?
I did. I posted a photo of it when we were up at Pine Top at our cabin.
Gotcha.
In the snow. Yeah. Boy, let me tell you, that particular snowstorm, it's not like what you guys have back east, but if we didn't have that thing, we wouldn't have gotten home.
You'd been stuck, right?
The road's right behind us. Yeah, it's a beast. I love it.
That is awesome. What do you think about the new electric Hummer that's coming up?
I think it's phenomenal. I love those things. My girlfriend actually bought the first one over at the auction this past March. Yeah, it's a phenomenal piece. I'm looking forward to perhaps considering placing an order. I'd like them to work the quirks out first. As with any new build, as you can imagine, there's the occasional quirk. So I might.
There's been some issues with the new Mustang that I've been seeing.
Oh, they'll get through them, though.
Yeah. Software updates, they'll patch out.
You guys, no big deal. Software updates are easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the Hummers.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are your thoughts on just obviously Tesla's in the market and there's other electric manufacturers. It seems like all the big players are creating an electric model. Where do you see the industry, say 10, 20 years from now in terms of electric versus non-electric?
I don't know. I think we'll be primarily electric. I don't like to speculate on stuff like this because it's outside of my scope, really. I think that we'll be heavily reliant on electric vehicles. My only concern is, are we robbing Peter to pay Paul when it comes to our environment? Those batteries are a real challenge to get rid of or recycle, and also to mine. There's a lot of mining involved and a lot of labor involved in creating them. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not, that's not really my skill set. I imagine gas will be around for a long time still, either way. There's always going to be gas vehicles as long as there's electric cars, so I do not know, Ben, but I am excited about the future nonetheless. I think that's going to be a phenomenal turn for the industry as a whole. And I personally think they're amazing. The fact that you can hit the pedal and just take off. As
you're talking about it, that's what I'm thinking about. These cars are going 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, they're incredible. All of them. Yeah. The Ford's new Mustang is amazing. The GM Hummer is amazing. The Teslas are incredible. Really, there's just no end to it. It's a whole different world to me, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it so I can speak more intelligently, if you will.
For sure.
And that's my thoughts on it. It's going to be an amazing future. I'll say that.
So in terms of different topic, but in terms of like just the world right now and like commodities going up, prices of lumber going up, the prices of housing is like getting crazy, seems to be everywhere. Do you notice that the price of cars are going up as well?
Ben, that's an interesting question. One of the things I think has happened in the market, and since it's passion-based, as I mentioned before, is people are realizing as a result of this pandemic that they have an expiration date. They spent some time in the house and they're pent up and they want to do things, and they realize that life is short and they've always wanted that Camaro or that Mustang, and so they're taking the plunge. So the collector car market appears really, really strong in the majority of sectors. The resto mod market is definitely taking off. I have several individuals who have expressed interest in converting their cars to resto mods because they like the old school appearance with the late model drivetrain and the dependability of being able to get there. Cars it's passion driven. It's all cyclical as well. When you look at the pre-war cars, the people that are passionate about them are passing away, and their kids are not necessarily interested in pursuing that same genre of vehicles. So they're picking up the later model vehicles. And there's people like myself who just adore the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, early 70s, mind you, because in 72, the federal government absolutely murdered the market, the performance market. So, it's healthy and it's going to go strong for a long time, I think. It might morph a couple more times. In my lifetime, maybe we'll see. I don't know, especially with the EV market. There's definitely a spike in regards to people who want to take their collector cars and convert them to electric, which I find interesting. Now, me personally, I got to hear that rumble of the engine, but that's just me, So, but there's a market for it.
Absolutely, yeah. So I watched, I think it was Gotham Garage on Netflix. They converted, I think, a Pinto to an electric, and it went on track and it flew, and the owner was floored. Yeah,
I bet.
I saw that and I was like, this could be a whole different industry,
Yeah.
So that's
it's comical they did it to a Pinto. I mean, there's a butt for every seat, and I'll never judge anybody for that. But one would think that they do it with something a little bit more robust. But hey, there's a cult following for Pintos.
Absolutely, yeah. I think they went purple. They had some interesting paint. I think they had some not huge tires, but they had some nice tires, and the thing flew. I'll find a link and I'll send it to you. But that was interesting to watch. And I asked. Just because people are like, where should we store our wealth, right? People are buying paintings. Some people, buying whole gold. Other people like stocks. There's obviously this new rush around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as like a store of value.
Yeah.
Do you think, I don't know, for the next 20, 30 years that like holding a Ford GT or holding a Lamborghini, you think those are like wise investments long-term?
Ben, I kind of go against the grain on this. A lot of the other people who are considered experts in the industry say that they make great investments. I've learned to not hedge on stuff like that. Is it better than Enron stock? Of course, because you got a car in the garage when it's over with. But in my opinion, buy it because you love it. Buy it because you want it. Don't buy it because you're hoping to make money on it. I can personally tell you, I've lost a whole lot of money on late model Shelbys because they were like belly buttons. Not when Mr. Shelby passed. I did the hedging thing. I thought, okay, well, if he passes, then, we've got a few of these. We'll go ahead and sell them when the time is right. And he passed away, and we thought they would go up. And unlike when Enzo Ferrari passed, they didn't do much. They're holding their value. Don't get me wrong. But I buy it because you want it. Buy it because you've always dreamed of owning it and sitting in the seat of one. I never recommend that. And I have a lot of people that I know who are like, well, this car is going up in value and this car is going up in value. Yeah. Well, I just stick with the safer investments if there is such a thing, something that's less passion driven and volatile, in my opinion. And again, my opinion, I might not be right. I'm still a student in the grand scheme, aren't I?
No, yeah. You're speaking from experience. So, I went to Miami with my buddy. We tried out the new Mustang, the new Corvette, which was awesome. And then obviously they have like every car down in Miami. But I watched the short Chevy documentary on creating the new Corvette and then getting to drive it was just really awesome.
I bet.
And those are ranging, I think, between like 100 or like 80 to like 120 grand. So that's been cool to see that, like, just Chevy continuing the Corvette legacy and really innovating, I think.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of car for that money. It really is. It's a phenomenal car. Gary and I are holding out for a Z06 model in that body style with the mid-engine, and they're beautiful. I think Chevy knocked it out of the park, and they will continue to knock it out of the park. Some purists are angry because the engine's not in where it's supposed to be, but I love it. I love mid-engines. I think they're fascinating.
Yeah, it was an experience. It was awesome.
Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a fun trip. That was overdue. It was with a friend of mine. Can you tell me about the $4.6 million Batmobile?
I can't tell you much about it. It's sold at auction in a public forum back at Barrett several years ago. And the gentleman that owns the thing asked me to broker it. And after I left Barrett, he had tried to sell it on his own. And the problem with that car, despite being a historic piece of history, is it's sold on a bill of sale. All the parts on it are labeled experimental, so it can't be titled, it can't be driven on the streets unless I guess you put a D tag on it, but I don't recommend that. Gotcha. So, and everything about it is very fragile. It's very historic. So after I left Barrett and waited my competition agreement out, he approached me again and said that he really wanted to sell the car. And did I know of anybody? Well, I did some research and put him in touch with, I brokered a deal with another individual. I can't disclose anything than, as far as parameters of the deal because I'm bound by NDA.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I had the honor of selling one of the most historic cars, in my opinion, pinned to my name. It truly is a phenomenal car. And to just sit in it and you think, oh my gosh, if this car could talk, how amazing would that be? I mean, it's a phenomenal piece to begin with. It's the start of something amazing. Well, I say the start. I mean, it was out in the comics first, but it's the start of something amazing, and it really is a cool piece. And I think it started out as a car that George Barris bought for $1 from Ford Motor Company as
insane.
As a concept car. It just blows my mind.
That's awesome. One of the notes I had, I saw on Instagram, there was I think it was a Russian manufacturer. They had created an electric mock Mustang mock-up. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask your thoughts on that. You kind of already spoke to it, but I would think that Ford might want to put a spin on that at some point.
I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about it, Ben, so I can't speak to it. But I would think that the paralegal in me says, "Wow, they better proceed with caution."
Yeah, no, that was one of the things I thought too. You can't take Ford's shell and then put your spin on everything else and then kind of go to market with it unless you're in agreement with Ford.
Some sort of licensing and manufacturing agreement. What do I know? I don't know anything about manufacturing really. But I mean, it's a cool idea and good for the Russians. I mean, I don't think they've had a whole lot of really cool cars stuck to their name, if you know what I mean, except for some of the utilitarian type vehicles.
Absolutely. I agree. Can you tell me about was the F code Fairlane Skyliner?
My favorite car ever. Yes, I love that car. That was amazing. Now, some of the folks in the industry have said that there were about 14 of them built. Other individuals say there were about 21 of them built. I only know of about 4 that are in existence still today. And none, in my opinion, were as nice as that one. I bought that car off the East Coast, flew out there, took a look at it, made the guy an offer. He accepted, had it shipped out here. I put some money into it and I represented it really well. And I've learned from some of the best when it comes to marketing these vehicles. There's some amazing people in our industry who really know how to do their displays. There's one gentleman by the name of Mark Young who really does a phenomenal job of displaying his cars at auction. Obviously, he tries to sell them in advance, but when he does take them to auction, they have lighting, they have mirrors, they have, they're on jack stands so you can see underneath them, stuff along those lines. So I took this car and I was fortunate enough to have an in spot at the auction. I had it color sanded and buffed by some of the best detailers in the area. And I lit it up really nice and I printed out the story on a big storyboard of sorts. Now this car came out of the East Coast and it was owned by an executive for, if memory serves, a coal company, I think. And the kid at the dealership who undercoated it at age 14 fell in love with the car and followed it its entire life and asked the guy who bought it at the dealership, from the delership that he undercoated it at, if he could please have right of first refusal when it came to purchasing it. This 14-year-old was not allowed to drive him. As a matter of fact, only the sales guys at the dealership were allowed to drive the car around because it was so rare as supercharged from the factory. And so anyway, I bought it off of this gentleman who became its second owner. And so technically speaking, we were the third owner. So it had a really fascinating history and it was an amazing car. It really was. And it knocked it out of the park. We set a world record with it for the highest hammer price. Other ones similar to it, comparable in condition, have sold in the 120 region. This one brought $300,000+ $330,000 with fees. Yeah, it is amazing. But it was a phenomenal car. And from what I understand, I think it went to someone in Texas.
That's awesome.
I was so excited just to be a part of that particular car. And I've had another one that's very similar to that too. It was a 32 Roadster. It was an Amber winner and a Riddler contender. It placed among the great 8. I actually cried when I sold that car, not because it brought so much money, but because it was like a piece of art. They're all pieces of art to me, Ben. They're beautiful in all their own ways. And there's something to be said for this particular 32. The underside was just as stunning as the top side. It was built by my friend Bobby Alloway. The upholstery was done by the best. The engine was one of, if memory serves, I want to say 32 of them that was built. It was powered by Chevy. It was truly a stunning piece. So
that is awesome. How did you celebrate those wins?
Gin and tonic. and lots of them at the time. I've since practiced drinking, but at the time, gin and tonic.
That is awesome. Where do you see, your business? Like, what are your goals for the next 5-10 years?
Well, I'm actually working on a very large project right now with my husband in connection with the live auction industry. I can't really disclose it because I'm bound by an NDA, unfortunately. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
As far as the business is concerned, I think it's going to be incredibly strong. I think, especially given the fact that with this pandemic, people have been itching to get out and, do things. You've seen what's happened with the RV market and with national parks. People are just flooding to these national parks because they've been pent up. They've been able to work wherever they want to now. I think the hobby as a whole is going to be healthy for years to come. And as I think I may have indicated before, it'll morph, it'll change. There'll be spikes in certain marks, as there always are. But all in all, I think it's going to be good. And I have received some inquiries from people globally, which is fascinating to me, to help them look for certain cars, car location service, or alternatively help them sell their vehicles. So there's a lot of pent up demand. I'm just trying to figure out how I go about structuring that differently. I've had some fascinating international clients in the past. One gentleman walked into my dealership once, purchased 4 vehicles, and never, ever took delivery of them. He came by once and sat in one of them, but that was it. So I stored them for a couple of years until I finally suggested to him that this was not really benefiting him nor the cars, because once you park them, they start to decay while the restorations get older. So, and he was based overseas. So, I think we're going to be fine. I think with support from people like yourself and from others in the industry, it's going to keep on booming. We just need to continue to get the word out there so that the younger generations, who many of which aren't really interested in driving, can see the benefits of these amazing works of art in motion. It's imperative to both Gary and I. Whenever we go out in our Ford GT, which isn't too terribly often, mind you, we take with us these little toy cars I think they're made by Greenlight, or maybe I think they're Matchbox. And they look just like our car. And we'll give them out to all the kids who express any semblance of interest at the car shows. That
is so cool.
Well, and I can't take all credit for it because I got the idea from a friend of ours who's a fellow GT owner. So, helping instill in the future generations is imperative to keep it alive and healthy. But I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
Absolutely.
And I'm thrilled to be part of it. As I indicated to you, I'm just a student. And I think the sky's the limit if I continue working hard. And I'm thrilled to see what my next chapter is, to be honest. I really am. I know that sounds goofy. People hate getting old. I think it's a blessing. I'm excited.
Awesome. Muffy, thank you so much for joining me. It was really great. It was really nice to chat with you and kind of learn, just about the industry, your history, your journey across, selling the Batmobile, selling the Skyliner, and just your experience.
And it has been an honor and a pleasure to both meet you and be featured on your show. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to learn more about me, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you. And where can people find you on social and your website?
People can find me on MuffyBennett.com, alternatively husbandandwifecarteam.com, and I'm on Instagram at Muffy.Bennett. And if you just Google me, I'll turn up.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Muffy.
Thank you, Ben. Take care.